This is the second discussion board for SEC 205, and it's on grades and the grading process. For the first section on informing the students of their process in the class, progress in the class, progress reports are important. They are a good measurement of where the student is, but they seem to come too seldomly in most high schools. They come every 3 weeks, and every 9 weeks is a report card. So, in the time span that 3 weeks happens, so much can occur in a student's life or in their grades, that they may have slipped between weeks 3 and 6. So, keeping them on track with progress reports, maybe weekly, maybe every other week, would make them have a accurate measurement of their grades. Another way of doing that would be through online grading, and I don't know how many schools actually post the grades of their students online in real time, the way that Blackboard does, which is a tool that I have found very useful. And even then, 2 times of progress reports between report cards can be a long time to wait for figuring out what your grades are, especially if you're not one to approach a teacher on finding out what your grades are. So making sure that you give them feedback weekly seems very important, or at least every other week. For monitoring achievements and recording achievements, I thought that maybe making sure that everything that the student does can be applied towards whatever the goal in the classroom is. Sometimes it's a test, sometimes it's a paper, sometimes it's even just quizzes or retaining the knowledge. But making sure that everything that they do can be applied towards that would really go farther into making sure that they feel progress in the classroom. One of the ways of doing this for recording this is making sure that you have plenty of quizzes, not something that would be detrimental to their grade if they were bad at them or bad test takers, the way some students are, but enough of them that they can have something that would pad out their grade or pad out a quiz grade. Maybe not make every one of them worth the same amount. Like in some cases I've seen there will be 10 or 12 quizzes in a grading period, but only 9 or 10 of them will be graded completely and applied towards the final grade. Something I had a teacher in high school do was that he would start the day off with a short quiz, 5 questions, and it was just to focus on the learning from the day prior, because it was an on-level class. It was U.S. history, and so making sure that those students, especially since in our education system, it almost seems like those are the students that get tossed by the wayside, but making sure that those students retain this information is paramount for making sure that they become successful further on, because they are usually the students that you hear not being successful, not making the final grades that get them into honors level classes, or even graduating. For effort monitoring and effort knowledge will be reflected in assignments related to the prior materials. As you put outside effort into making sure that you know the material beforehand, before class, studying it after class, making sure that you come to class prepared with the readings, or knowing everything, knowing the lesson that is going to be taught that day, it would reflect positively in your grades. Not necessarily directly, but through the work of the student, it would be clear whether or not they study outside of class or read the text outside of class. Another application of pop quizzes here. In my shadow teaching today, the AP teacher the students in the AP class were almost begging for a pop quiz today. They all seemed very receptive to the idea of giving them, they all studied for the lesson today, which was on the American Revolution. They all studied it, or at least they knew it, and they wanted to make sure that the teacher knew that as well. And it almost seemed it was a very positive atmosphere in that classroom when they were all asking the teacher many times to just give them the pop quiz, because they seemed like they were the kind of class that would do very well on pop quizzes. They are the ones that are driven. As for good and bad behavior, in a way, it shouldn't factor into their grades. A student should not be a student should not be graded specifically on their performance. While it is important for the student to, put forth the effort in the class, or to allow other students to put forth effort in class, bad behavior should not be punished. And although it does tend to be reflective in their grade in the end, as good behavior should not be praised, but it will reflect in their grade in the end. It will show in their participation. It will show in their attentiveness when you are teaching. It will show in every aspect of the classroom, whether they sit next to their friends and play with a bouncy ball all class, or whether they sit straight up, stare at you the whole time, make sure that they take every note that you say, make sure that their assignment is turned on time. It's just, it shows, but it should not be the way you grade things. As for part 2, the topic I chose was talking on the anchors. Something I saw around Laney High School was a lot of these anchor posters. They were eye-catching. They were something that reflected youth culture. One of the ones was history and hashtags, and I didn't get a chance to look at it closely, but it does seem like those kinds of things are something that will catch a student's eye. Something that they can, a mnemonic, an easy to remember system that the student can remember, and when they're in a class sitting, maybe not completely paying attention to you, they can still be obtaining some sort of knowledge from a helpful poster in the classroom. Something like having the Bill of Rights, since I'm going to be teaching a history class, the Bill of Rights in a classroom, but in a fun way that the students will remember. I had an 8th grade teacher, and his mnemonic for remembering the Fifth Amendment involved flipping the bird at all of his students, and that is not a good way to teach. But to this day, I still remember eminent domain as flying the bird at the government. So that's what I have thoughts on today's lesson. So thank you.